Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to Brandy Lloyd Holistic Nutrition and Personal Training. Today, I wanted to talk about something that is very personal to me, and that is living with fibromyalgia. And this also means living with chronic pain and chronic fatigue and a myriad of other aspects that are under the name fibromyalgia. For most of you, or for any of you that don't know what fibromyalgia is it is an autoimmune condition, and it really rocks your world when your body, your autoimmune system starts to attack itself. And for most people, like myself, it is often a long time coming in the diagnosis. For me, it started out with some tiredness, fatigue. But at that time, I was doing large group fitness classes and boot camps and teaching 23 classes or 23 hours a week, along with my own fitness and busy high schoolers in the house and ed sports and everything else. So I discounted my fatigue, moved on into daily headaches, and that you kind of get used to them, and joint pain, which of course and overall body pain attributed to the very busy lifestyle that I was leading and kind of hard on my body, and then digestive issues that of course rolled into food allergies and discovering an intolerance to gluten and then soy and then potentially dairy if it's a regular basis, and going into tender spots on your body. They're actually called tender points, and where you keep looking, is there a bruise there? Or maybe even some emotional issues like anxiety or depression. There's just a lot of daily low-grade fevers, and there's just a lot that falls under that heading of fibromyalgia. I remember early on, I think it was about the early or mid-90s when I first heard the term fibromyalgia, and I really kind of poo-pooed it. I really thought, oh, really? Yeah, your muscles hurt or your body hurts. Okay, so that's what we're going to call it. We're going to just call it a symptom. But I understand why that needed to be is for the conventional medical world and Western medicine, they really need to name something in order to classify it and study it and start being able to lump people into a category and hopefully come up with a solution or a cure, or at the very least, a way to manage symptoms. And I thought, gosh, that's really kind of a rip-off diagnosis there, because there is no real protocol, or at the time, there wasn't a lot of understanding. And these poor people back in the day were looked at like they were just like having more mental problems, like a hypochondriac, like what, you can't always have all these things wrong with you. And the tricky part about fibromyalgia for most people is that your blood work looks pretty good. Of course, it's going to look like you have, like maybe your immune system, my white blood cell count, gets really low, or your overall level of infection seems to be kind of high. But for the most part, it looks, there's nothing like crazy in your blood work. And so it's very confusing. It takes a long time to be diagnosed, and usually it's done clinically. The doctor listens to your symptoms, and then there are some testing tender points, and that's it, voila. And for a lot of people, including myself, when my diagnosis came, I did feel relief, like, oh, okay, so I have something in common with other people. That's great. I'm not just, losing my mind or becoming a hypochondriac, or making this all up. Currently, there's around 8 million Americans that suffer with fibromyalgia, and most of them are women. I believe it's like 80 or 90% of the sufferers are women, and it hits most women in their 30s and 40s. So I've been dealing with issues as they've been cascading, and which just means it's like snowballing for around 8 years. And then as I look back as a child, now that I know more about fibromyalgia, there were plenty of signs that I did not have an optimal or well-functioning immune system even when I was a kid. When I was in the 6th grade, I had a lot of stomach pain. I had a teacher that I did not like. She did not like me, and she lived on our court. There was no getting around her, and that was a very stressful school year for me. And I was a relatively good student, and they were concerned that I was developing stomach ulcers at that time. And stress is terrible for fibromyalgia. Boy, does it cause a flare, and we'll talk about flares in a little bit. And I just want to remind you that these are just lifestyle and health tips that I'm giving you. I am in no way encouraging you to self-diagnose with anything. And if you have any questions about some things that I am saying, then, give me a call, give me an email, head to my website, get in touch with me, find me on Facebook and Instagram, and I would be happy to go into a little bit of this information further with you. So I digress. When I was a kid, I also had a lot of joint pain, especially I remember complaining behind my knees. I'm only 5 feet tall. I don't think I've ever had any kind of growth spurt at any point. I was always little growing up, and we attributed it to growing pains is what we were told. And I had allergies growing up. I rode horses, and boy, I get to sneezing, but that wouldn't stop a little girl from riding horses, that's for sure. I had difficulty holding my arm up for any length of time. It would kind of bother my neck and my shoulder and my upper back. The endurance just wasn't there. Asthma, headaches, and then just joint pain. Early on, I was told in my 20s that I had arthritis. It's like, well, that's crazy. I'm only in my 20s. And we chalk it off, to genetics. People in my family, have arthritis, and sure, they're 70, but they still have it. But arthritis is a form of inflammation. And I've always had trouble digesting certain kinds of foods, bloating or gas or constipation when I travel or whatever. So my body, when I was starting to think about it, was really never quite from engaging in a myriad of sports and activities and just being an active kid growing up. And it hasn't stopped me from being an active adult either. But once these little nagging things in the back of my mind that I just assumed everybody kind of dealt with started interfering with my daily life was when I really started taking stock of how I was feeling, started to keep track of that. And I was already a health and fitness professional, but I started studying a little bit deeper into nutrition. And let me tell you, nutrition is a big part, proper nutrition is a big part of living well with fibromyalgia. Unfortunately, we don't have a cure for fibromyalgia. It's even hard to find a root cause. Everybody's a little bit different. But I was kind of thinking that I would share a little bit about what it's like to live with fibromyalgia. The first thing is typically sleep is not great. It's hard to get comfortable when your body hurts. I always describe it as if you've ever had one of those flus where you have felt like somebody just put you inside a KitchenAid mixer and tumbled you around for a while, that head to toe can't even name something that isn't hurting. I remember saying one time to my husband, I'm pretty sure that my tongue is the only thing that isn't hurting right now. And I said it with levity, trying to just kind of laugh about it, but it is true and often sad. So that's why it's hard to find a comfortable position at night in bed. Even putting my knees together because of tender spots between knees is painful, hurtful. So oftentimes you don't have the best sleep, and then when you wake up in the morning, everything feels really tight. Like I fumble around on a guitar, and I just imagine like I am a guitar where all my strings are just so tight, and I'm terribly out of tune, and everything feels like a little swollen and puffy and tight, and you kind of get out of bed and and you start moving. And moving does help, but I want to encourage you to get out of bed. Those of you that might be home or disabled or unable to work because of the day-to-day or even the changes with fibromyalgia throughout the day, if you're unable to work, I still recommend that you set a bedtime so that you can get a proper at least 6 to 8 hours sleep. Because I know for a lot of people with fibromyalgia, it might take 2 or 3 hours even to go to sleep, to get to sleep. So set your alarm in the morning and get up. Get up, and what I do is I have coffee. I prefer the fat-fueled coffee. Coffee's made with like MCT oils and ghee and a nice organic coffee. And I have some meditation time. I have quiet time for journaling. I'm a Christian and my faith is very important to me, which means that I'm reading my Bible. I'm starting my day out with a sense of gratitude and remembering who I am and what I have in my life and how that's life, not fibromyalgia. It's a part of my life, but it isn't my life. So that time is very, very precious to me. It's 30 to 45 minutes. That's about all my body can sit. And I do move around a lot on my chair. Sometimes I'm, kneeling on my chair, sitting on my shins a little bit, or I'm standing up and I'm stretching if I'm reading my Bible, or I might be at a stand-up table to where I can journal. And that's a very important time for me to get my brain and my heart and my body kind of going. Now, if I had a perfect kind of day, I would probably go right from that into a light walk outside, maybe a little bit of yoga, or if it's a great day where I'm feeling great, some lightweight training for 30 to 45 minutes with a little, resistance work. I'm a kettlebeller, so I really enjoy that. Exercise, having a schedule is very important. Having journaling time and meditation time is very, very important. And exercise is very, very important. I know your body doesn't feel it. I know it doesn't. I know on a good day for most people that suffer with fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, a good day would be, like I call it, like a 3 out of 10. A good day is a 3 or a 4. My brain is lit up and feeling clear, and my body just feels a general achiness or tightness. And once I start moving, working on breathing exercises, getting out in nature, it makes a huge difference. Even though when I opened my eyes in the morning, I could have easily just called in for the day and just checked out. But that mental mindset is really important. It's very important to realize that you're dealing with a condition, and this acceptance of your condition is extremely important for the quality of life that I know that most of us want. Most of us want joy and happiness and friendships, and we want to go out and do adventurous things, and in our family we call it making memories. If you're feeling woe is me and why did this happen to me all the time, then you're going to miss out on a lot of those things. And I'm going to be totally honest. Sometimes there's just days or moments that are like that, where women, we know how restoring and refreshing sometimes a good cry can be. And sometimes when there is a bad flare, there's nothing wrong with having a little cry over it and saying that I'm tired of this. Why can't I be normal? Why can't I be fine? Get it out. Journal it out, cry it out, weep it out, whatever you need to do. For me, that kind of place is best done on a solitary environment. My journaling, driving in the car, and really getting it out and then saying, okay, I'm done with that. I'm moving on. This is my lot. This is my life, and this is where I'm going to live. I'm not quitting, but I am accepting it. I'm not going to fight it. Fighting fibromyalgia, fighting chronic pain, fighting chronic illness, fighting it